Richard stopped near Samuel, his lip curling in disdain. "Why are you sitting here like a parasite?" he shouted loud enough for others to hear. Samuel looked up, startled but calm. It was a crisp autumn morning in the city. The streets were crowded, and people hurried past without a second glance at the man sitting quietly near the fountain. His clothes were torn. This was Samuel, a man the world called a beggar. Samuel clutched a paper cup, not asking for much, only hoping for enough coins to buy a little bread. His eyes, however, carried a gentleness that life's cruelty had not erased. He greeted passers-by with a nod, sometimes a soft, "Good morning." Then came the sound of polished shoes, striking the pavement, sharp, confident, commanding attention. A man in an immaculate suit, gold watch glinting in the sunlight, strode toward the fountain. This was Richard Allen, a millionaire businessman known for both his fortune and his arrogance. Richard stopped near Samuel, his lip curling in disdain. "Why are you sitting here like a parasite?" he shouted loud enough for others to hear. Heads turned, some smirked, others shifted uncomfortably. Samuel looked up, startled but calm. "Sir, I mean no harm. Just waiting for a little kindness," he said softly. Richard's voice grew harsher. "Kindness? Get a job instead of begging on the street. People like you make this city ugly." He waved his hand as if shooing away an insect. Laughter rippled from a group of onlookers. Samuel's cheeks burned, but he said nothing. He lowered his eyes, gripping the cup tighter. But what Richard didn't know was that within the hour, fate would spin the wheel and force him to face the very man he had humiliated. Richard strutted toward his car, a sleek black Mercedes parked across the street. He adjusted his tie, checking his reflection in the tinted window, still fuming. He hated the sight of weakness and despised anything that reminded him of struggle. Samuel watched him leave, whispering under his breath, "May life show you what true strength looks like." Moments later, Richard slid behind the wheel and revved the engine. Traffic was heavy, horns blaring, tempers flaring. He muttered about his busy schedule, about people in his way. Samuel rose slowly, stretching his legs, ready to shuffle toward the corner bakery. But as he stepped off the curb, a deafening screech split the air. A taxi swerved to avoid a cyclist, forcing another car to slam its brakes. Richard's Mercedes jolted forward, colliding into the barrier. The crash was violent. Glass shattered, smoke rose from under the hood, and fire licked at the edges of the engine. Within seconds, panic spread through the street. Pedestrians gasped, some screamed, but no one moved closer. Richard was trapped. His chest slammed against the steering wheel, and his seatbelt locked tight across him. He coughed violently as smoke filled his lungs. His eyes widened with terror. He pounded against the window, but the door was jammed. People gathered, whispering, "It's going to explode! Stay back!" Everyone stayed back, except Samuel. Samuel dropped his cup of coins, the sound of metal scattering across the pavement. He rushed forward, ignoring the shouts to stop. His hands trembled, but not with fear, with determination. He pulled off his old coat, wrapping it around his hands. With it, he smashed at the cracked window until shards fell inward. Smoke poured out, stinging his eyes. Through the haze, Richard looked up. His eyes widened, not in gratitude, but in disbelief. "You," he rasped, "the beggar." Samuel didn't reply. He pushed harder, fumbling with the jammed seatbelt buckle. Flames hissed and popped under the hood. Heat seared his skin. Finally, with one desperate pull, the belt released. Samuel hooked his arms under Richard's and dragged him out just as a fireball erupted from the engine. The blast knocked them both onto the pavement. The crowd gasped, some even applauded, but Samuel was too busy checking Richard's breathing. As Samuel sat beside the coughing, trembling millionaire, Memories surged in his mind. He remembered another life, one not marked by rags and ridicule. Years ago, Samuel had been a firefighter. He had worn the uniform proudly, saving lives from flames, pulling strangers from wreckage. But fate had dealt him merciless blows. One night, during a massive warehouse blaze, Samuel charged inside to rescue a trapped child. He succeeded, but not without cost. A collapsing beam crushed his leg. His injury ended his career. The years that followed unraveled quickly. Hospital bills consumed his savings. His wife, unable to cope with the weight of poverty, left him. His home was repossessed, and slowly, Samuel found himself reduced to begging in the very city he once protected. Yet even as the world turned its back, Samuel never lost his instinct to help. He carried the scars of his sacrifice, hidden under layers of ragged clothes. And now, here he was again, in flames, in smoke, in danger, saving a man who only minutes earlier had spat on his dignity. Richard coughed violently, clutching Samuel's arm. His tailored suit was scorched, his watch cracked. The crowd buzzed with disbelief. A woman in the crowd whispered, "Isn't that Samuel, the homeless man?" Another replied, "Yes, I've seen him near the fountain. He saved him." Richard's lips trembled. His arrogance melted under the weight of shame. He looked into Samuel's weary eyes and saw not weakness, but strength greater than his own wealth could buy. "Why? Why did you help me?" Richard croaked, his voice broken. Samuel looked at him steadily. "Because life is worth more than pride," he said softly. "And because once saving lives was who I was." Richard's chest tightened, not from the crash, but from guilt. He had mocked this man, ridiculed him before strangers. And yet, Samuel had risked his life for him without hesitation. The fire engines arrived, sirens wailing, and paramedics rushed to the scene. As Richard was lifted onto a stretcher, he reached out, gripping Samuel's hand. "Forgive me," he whispered, tears welling in his eyes. In the following days, the story spread across the city. Newspapers ran headlines: "Homeless man saves millionaire from fiery death." Photos of Samuel dragging Richard from the flames appeared on every screen. People who had once walked past Samuel without a glance now stopped, offering food, clothes, even jobs. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a beggar, but as a man of courage. Richard, still recovering, held a press conference. Cameras flashed as he spoke with uncharacteristic humility. "This man," he gestured to Samuel beside him, "showed me what true wealth looks like. It isn't money or cars or status. It's courage, compassion, and dignity. I owe him my life, and I owe this city an apology." Gasps and applause filled the room. Richard announced he was funding a rehabilitation program for veterans and the homeless, starting with Samuel, who would oversee it as a community leader. Samuel's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, he stood tall, not as a beggar, but as a man restored. That evening, Samuel sat once again by the fountain, though not with a cup in his hand. This time, he sat with a notebook, sketching plans for the future. People greeted him warmly, children waved, strangers thanked him. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "Perhaps life hasn't forgotten me after all." The lesson was clear to everyone who heard his story. Never judge a person by their appearance or circumstance. The one you look down upon today may be the one who saves you tomorrow. For Richard, the experience stripped away arrogance, leaving humility in its place. For Samuel, it was a reminder that even when the world casts you aside, your worth does not vanish, because dignity isn't given by society, it's carried within. And so, the beggar who was mocked became the hero the city applauded.